So lonely in my life. Oh my god, this is forever. So bloated is what she told me. My stomach is broken. I knew it was a little bit serious because she started to close the curtains, and I actually had to have an MRI scan recently, and I was like, hell. And people actually die from my condition. Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're just joining me now, then hi. I have a piece of hair in my mouth. Wonderful. Still there. Gonna leave it there. My name's Imogen. Thank you so much for finding me. I don't know how you found me, but please stay. And to anyone returning, I'm so grateful that you've returned. So, really exciting. I'm back doing story times, which I feel very grateful for. And this story time is part 5 of my stomach condition story time. So if you're new here, then you won't know, but I do have a stomach condition. I have multiple conditions which we're going to get to, but I basically separated it into parts because it's a long story and I don't want to bore you guys too much. So buckle up, get ready for part 5. I will link part 1, part 2, part 3 and part 4 in the description. If you want to go and check those out, I definitely would. And also I'll link part 4 up here or this side. Still don't know which side it is, but let's get in with the video. Without further ado, let's go. So I left you on a cliffhanger as usual, and I really feel bad about that. I'm sorry. I wanted to make this quite an intense story time, and I also wanted you guys to be hooked and want to watch more. I wanted to do these story times as well for you guys to not feel so alone. There are so many different hidden disabilities, silent illnesses, or visible illnesses that everyone goes through on a daily basis, whether it's mental health, whether it's an actual disability, whether it's something you are tackling. I want you to know that I'm here with you. We are in this together. Let's do this. So when we last left off, I was told that I was going to have to go through this procedure and this test, this last test, to see what I had. And this test cost the government and the NHS a lot of money, so they wanted me to be seen as an outpatient, which would take 8 to 12 weeks. However, I didn't have 8 to 12 weeks I could deal with. I couldn't deal with another 8 to 12 weeks. By this point, it had been months and months and months. So this amazing specialist, she whispered to me and said, you can actually not leave your bed, and you can tell them that you want to stay in hospital and you want to be seen as an inpatient. So that's what I did. I put up a fight that I didn't know I had in me, a fight that at that point I'd been so pushed around here, pillar to post, you've got this, or you haven't got this, you've got this, or you haven't got this. And at that point I was like, I just need to give it all I've got to stay in and do this last test. And also I wouldn't have been able to survive 8 to 12 weeks with not the diagnosis, because I was on a drip of morphine, I was on so many drips of medication. I couldn't see myself being at home yet because I couldn't be an outpatient, because I couldn't even look after myself. So anyway, this last test was quite intense, and it basically meant that I ate radioactive porridge in the morning. So for 2 days I wasn't allowed to eat anything, but I wasn't stomaching anything anyway except drinks, so it was fine. And I had to drink this awful drink, which I don't remember the name of it. Some of you guys might have remembered it. I don't know, if you let me know down in the comment section. But it was absolutely horrendous, and it basically shifts everything out. It shifts everything out. It's like fire. It's like fire. And I really don't know what it's called. It's not Movicol or anything like that. It is like hospital grade stuff. Like, they don't prescribe that to people. You have it in hospital. Let's say if you're having a bowel examination, or someone has to do a colonoscopy or a endoscopy, all of those things you have this thing for. So I got given that, and it flushed me out. Let me tell you about that. Sometimes I wish I had that when I'm blocked up for like 3 weeks. I wish I had that gem. Anyway, so I mean, for anyone else out there suffering with constipation and stuff like that, this gem, although it's not great, you're not meant to have it for your body, it's not great for your body, but anyway. I feel like I've got a label on this jumper still. I do. I got this from Primark and I've still got the label on. Oh well, looks cute. I ended up having to eat this radioactive porridge, which had a radioactive substance in it which they could trace on the MRI scanner, and they could see where this porridge traced through my body, how it moved, etc. So I had to keep going in and out of the MRI scanner, at which one point I was actually in the MRI scanner for an hour, and that was hell. The noise. If you haven't had an MRI scan, then lovely, we don't need to talk about it, but if you have had one, then you will know it is just, I don't want to scare anyone, because you shouldn't be scared, because it's a positive thing. An MRI scan is an amazing thing because it is really the best way of the doctors and people that are professionals seeing what they need to see. So an MRI should never be scary, but it's quite daunting when you're in there for a long time. It's boring, it's loud, like you have these enormous noises, which are just so annoying. Please don't be put off if you're having an MRI scan. You are amazing and you can do that. But I had to go in it for so many times during a 48-hour period. I was in and out of that MRI scanner. I cannot explain to you how many times. It was like every hour basically, so they could trace where it was going. And it was, I mean, it was 7 years ago, but I still remember it so vividly. And I actually had to have an MRI scan recently, and I was like, I had trauma from the hospital already, so having another one, I was just not prepared for it. But it's fine, it's fine. So on the MRI scan, they traced the porridge, and then they did another MRI scan 72 hours later, after all of the 48-hour ones. And they said to me that in a normal person's, no, not normal, in an average, in a regular, I hate saying normal because I feel like there is no definition of normal and no one should be barricaded with feeling abnormal. Everyone is different in their own individual right. I also hate it when you go to like a coffee shop and you're like, oh, can I have almond milk? And they're like, okay, is this one almond milk or normal milk? And you're like, what? It should be regular milk. Anyway, enough. So they said that in a regular stomach, you know, a very functioning stomach that is from birth functioning, that food would have digested within a 20-minute process. So within 20 minutes, your body starts the digestion process. Your stomach goes, all right, hun, your brain sends signals and they're all ready to get going. After those tests, it was now time for me to actually leave hospital. I was going to be treated as an outpatient and they were going to send me the letter of what I had or if I didn't have anything. However, I was literally just being let go. What's the word when you're released from hospital? What is the word? My mind goes blank when I do these story times, I swear. I don't even know. Honestly, you have no idea how hard it is to remember all these individual details. Anyway, so I'm at the end of my bed with my dad getting everything ready, and my specialist comes, and I knew it was a little bit serious because she started to close the curtains. She then sat down and she explained that after 24 hours, nothing moved in my stomach. After 48 hours, nothing moved in my stomach. And after 72 hours, yeah, you guessed it, nothing moved in my stomach. That porridge stayed put. So what they came to the diagnosis was that my stomach was paralyzed. My stomach does not work. My stomach is broken. It's weird to say that out loud because I haven't said that for so long, because I've had this condition for 7 years now. And it was such a weird feeling to be told that, because how can I explain it? In my head, although I knew I had something wrong, I knew I had something because my body wasn't functioning properly, to then be told that I had that and it was a lifelong condition, I don't know, you feel like your world is crumbling at the same time as your world is being put back together. Does that make any sense? Like, it's almost like, okay, I finally have something I can work on. I finally have a condition I can take medication for and it can help. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this is forever. You know, it's a really strange feeling. So I ended up crying, and she was amazing. She was incredible, and she still is incredible. And she explained to me that the correct terminology for it was stomach paresis, so stomach paralysis basically. And at that point, that was all I had. So that's all they knew that I had. Then later on, I start to get other conditions, which I will go on to and tell you about. But I guess once your digestive system stops working, your stomach isn't sending the right signals to your brain, so it's completely gone, then everything else stops working, because it's like everything else is going at such a speed, but your stomach's not sending the right signals, so nothing else is going at the same speed. Discharged. That's the right word, discharged. I was getting discharged, sorry, it just came to me. So she ended up telling me that I had a severe gastroesophageal reflux disease, and I also had grade 3 stomach paresis, which basically means your stomach is paralyzed. And the reflux disease is, as it says, just constant, continuous acid reflux, bile out of, yeah, everywhere. So grade 3 is one of the worst grades of stomach paresis that you can have. It basically means your stomach doesn't function at all. It was completely broken. And I basically had gastric failure, is what she told me. Which, to hear after so many months of pleading for a diagnosis, I then suddenly got my diagnosis, and I don't know, it was so hard. It was so hard to deal with. And my mind starts going to the future, thinking, what's gonna happen in the future? You know, all these other things. But at that time, my dad said to me, Mills, My family call me Millie. Mills. Family thing. Sorry. No real explanation. My grandma used to call me Mills and Boom from the Mills and Boom books, and that's it. So my dad was like, Mills, it's one step at a time, baby. Like, let's focus on the now and focus on what we can control, not what we can't control. Let's not look forward to that. Let's just be here in the present moment. So that's what I guess I did. I just started to process that and understand, okay, this is what you've got. And then she started to explain that I would be seeing her regularly. I would also have to have certain different training for my stomach, and I would be on medication for the rest of my life. That was just the beginning of the journey. I thought it would be a lot smoother of a process because I've never had a condition before. I just thought, all right, okay, cool. The condition starts, I then medicate it and it goes away. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And also, this process has been very, very, very long. This process has been very hard, and it's been a complete trial and error. I've had certain different complications with medications, etc., which I will go on to explain in the next parts and stuff, but let's just talk about this. One thing that I will sort of try to explain to you guys is the way that it works with my stomach. So if you left food out, let's say you left, I don't know, let's say you left curry out, or let's say you left a piece of food out, any piece of food, fruit, whatever. You leave it out and you leave that broccoli out, and the broccoli goes moldy after a certain amount of time, doesn't it? You know, you leave it out and it goes moldy. Well, that's what happens in my stomach. Because food isn't moving through anywhere, what's happening is the food is going moldy, let's say, and it's releasing poisonous gas, which is extremely dangerous. And I never really understood the severity of it until I actually started speaking to people that had gastroparesis, and they've lost friends to gastroparesis, and people actually die from my condition. It's no laughing matter. It's not something to joke about. This is serious. For anyone out there who is suffering with it, then I would love to hear from you in my DMs. I would love to talk to you guys, because everyone is suffering with a completely different set of body parts. My stomach that has stomach paresis, someone next to me who has stomach paresis, it might completely work completely differently, and that's what leads me on to diet, etc. So when the food goes moldy, obviously the poisonous gas is released into your system, and then it can go into your blood, which is very, very life-threatening. And I have had certain times where my life has been at a very difficult time. With my landlady back in London, there was a couple of times where it was a very scary time, and I'm glad that I lived with a landlady and I had a family, basically, because living with people that are my age, it probably would have been harder to explain to them. You know, when I moved in with this wonderful angel, she really was like a mother, a second mother to me. She was a second mother, a mother from, you know, a different place. My mum was obviously at home, but this person was like a mum to me. She looked after me. She came to the hospital with me. Her children came to the hospital with me because one of them was similar to age to me. So I will go on to that again as well in other story times, because I want to explain to you certain times when my life was really bad. So just quickly, just to let you know, I'm going to be talking quickly about vomiting. So if you don't like that bit, then I would literally skip a minute in. I'm not going to talk about it for a minute long, but I just want to let you know. A week later, after being on my medication, I was on actually one of the strongest laxatives in the country. Nothing was moving and I had extreme obstructions. So I actually ended up getting cyclic vomiting syndrome, which I'm not going to talk to you about too much, but you can look it up. It's just extreme amounts of sickness. Because basically, let's say this is your colon. Food is stuck in your colon and it can't come out. This is my bum, sorry. So food can't come out this way. So what happens is all the other food is getting trapped. So this is the obstruction, and all the food is sat there and it can't move. So what happens is it comes back up. And that is really the only way I can explain it. I'm not great, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medic, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to explain from my own perspective and point of view. So from all of this, they ended up giving me a higher dose of domperidone and also upping my other medication. However, from an extreme obstructions, I ended up actually getting chronic back pain to the point where my back would seize up because of all the acid that was surrounding my body. It would go into my back and my muscles would be so constricted from the acid in my stomach and my back that I then ended up having to be tested for chronic pancreatitis. That's right. Even though I was diagnosed, I was continuously going in and out of hospital for further tests because they felt like they'd missed things. And also, unfortunately, even though I was diagnosed, my body started to give up and certain other things weren't working as well, so I had to keep going in. So I was completely restricted from my university. I had missed so much work that I actually had to complete 6 months worth of work within 1 month, and I went back to university way too soon. But I was paying rent, I was paying for the university, and also all I'd ever known was dancing, singing and acting, and I thought, if I give that up, what have I got in my life? I had nothing else at the time except this. All I felt like I was my stomach. All I felt that I had was my stomach condition. I didn't have anything else. I had no partner. I didn't really have very close friends. All my close friends were back in Brighton. I didn't get back to see them. I loved my family, but again, they were apart from me. They were in Brighton, I was in London. But my mum was in the New Forest, so it was just very hard, lonely and isolated, and I was at my lowest. I was definitely at my lowest, and I ended up going back to university way too soon, and the university didn't treat me the way that I should have been treated, and that is something which is a fact. That's not something which, you know, I want to discuss right now. I will definitely be doing videos on my university because I feel like it's something I definitely have to speak about, but I ended up having to cram 6 months worth of work into a month so I could get all of my credits for that term. However, they were so hard to work with. My university made it so incredibly difficult. They had no staff that could help me. So this was the amount of work that I had to do. So I missed 2 3,500 word essays. I had no idea of the learning. So I had to read, I had to watch things on the internet. It was so hard because I hadn't seen the musicals that I had to write about and all these things. I then missed a choreography. So I had to choreograph a dance for 5 people and they had to perform it to a musical number. I then had to do a ballet class, a jazz class, a contemporary class and a tap class. All 4 classes on my own. I had to learn an hour-and-a-half class on my own and perform them. So they just say exercise number 2 and you'd go on to them, exercise number 5 and you'd go on to them. I then had to learn for each individual dance, I then had to learn a 1.5-minute solo piece. So I had to do a solo of ballet, a solo of jazz, a solo of contemporary and a solo of tap, all in the space of 1 month. I then had to have 2 songs rep. So I had to do a 1930s classic ballad, and then I had to do a up-tempo ballad or something like that from the 1900s, an old piece. So I had to learn them. Bearing in mind, I had no teachers to help me. No teachers helped me. I would be given a space in the studio, and then all of a sudden first years would come in, all of a sudden third years would come in and they'd be like, this studio's booked out, sorry, and they'd have a class on. The university did nothing to help me, absolutely nothing. I would have 1 class, I think I had 1 class to teach me the class. However, my ballet teacher, she's amazing and she was in the Royal Ballet, but she actually didn't show us any of the exercises. She'd just say, okay, and do this and do that and do that and do that. She'd just say pas de basque, on bourrée, blah, 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 whatever. And she'd say pirouette and you just have to do them. So it was very hard to learn from someone who didn't actually show me the pieces anyway. And at this point, my body was so weak. My body was so weak. I was so bloated. I had so much water retention, so much water weight because none of the food was moving. So it was just literally sitting here. My stomach, my body, my face was swollen, to which they definitely told me that I was swollen. And what else did I have to do? Singing, jazz, ballet. And I had to do 1 piece of theory, but it was so intense. It was so intense. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Then I had to do 2 monologues for the acting. So I had to do 2 monologues for acting, which I had to learn, which was fine. I feel like that was the good part. Everything else was so hard. Imagine having to cram 6 months of your degree into 1 month with no help. Mainly practical work. I could understand if it was a lot of theory and a lot of, you know, written work, but it wasn't. It was 75% practical. 75% practical, of which I couldn't teach myself. It was hell. I am so lucky that I did it, because I would sit in my uni room with the girls that I didn't get along with, and I would sit in that uni room and I've never felt so lonely in my life. And I would have to sit on my laptop and watch these videos of the girls that had previously done the exams and have to learn it in my room. My room in London in uni was a double bed, so much smaller than this, so much smaller than this. The double bed was up against the wall and I had a wardrobe. That was it. That was it. My room was so small. It shouldn't have been a double bed in there, but it's because I literally pushed it up against the side and pushed it in. I walk in my room and it was just a wardrobe here and that. So learning them from my bed, I'd lost all my technique, all my core strength. I'd lost everything. My voice had completely changed from all the acid and it was continuing to change. I'd lost everything, I felt like, at that time. And I had no hope for anything. And so I was completely depressed and I ended up having to go to the doctors to speak about having depression. And what happened was, and that's where I'm going to leave you, that is going to be the cliffhanger for the next part. The next part actually goes and it gets, you know, even more intense and there are a lot more things that happen. But I feel like finally we have one of the names of my condition. We have gastroesophageal reflux disease and stomach paresis. So at least we have that. But yeah, I will definitely be talking about anxiety and depression in the next one. I will also be talking about what happened to my stomach, further things that happened, awful story times about what happened, certain situations which I got myself into which were horrendous. But I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching this. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. 7 years ago I never thought I'd got out of that, and I feel like I am so blessed to be here. I'm so blessed to have you guys. I'm so blessed for the future. I'm so grateful and thankful for everything, and I always will be grateful and thankful for this life. I love you guys so much, and until next time, I'm gonna love you and I'm gonna leave you. So I will do another part of this video next week. I love you guys. Thank you.